Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello everyone, this is Umar Hamid, your host, and welcome to the No Limit Selling Podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategies, and advice on how to make you better, stronger, faster. Get ready for another episode. Hello everyone, I'm privileged to have Brian Razzaque here, the President CEO of SocialToaster. Did I get the title right?
It's actually former CEO. We just had a management transition. I'm the chairman of the board and the founder, but we were fortunate enough recently to bring on a new CEO with a really exciting background. And so now I am day-to-day assisting in the position of CMO.
So in 90 seconds, tell us who you are and what you do.
Again, my name is Brian Razzaque. I'm the founder of SocialToaster, and we are a company that provides a social marketing and advocacy platform. We help businesses to identify, engage, and recruit individuals on social media to help promote their brand.
So we get a better sense of who you are, Brian. Who is your favorite superhero, and what attribute speaks to you?
Well, I'm gonna cheat this one a little bit because we actually, as part of our marketing strategy, we came up with our own superheroes. We call them the Supers, and they're led by Mr. Social, who helps companies to be more effective on social media. But we've got a bunch of other great characters that we've created as well, including the influencer, visibility girl. We got a bunch of them. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say we have our own superheroes here.
Way to promote. We know you're in marketing. Brian, starting a company from idea to, making it real and stepping aside, getting a new CEO, there's been probably good days and dark days. Brian, what motivates you? What keeps you going even in the tough days?
That's a great question. What motivates me is I'm the type of guy that likes to tackle problems and come up with solutions. And the whole idea behind SocialToaster came about as a result of a belief that social media has value to businesses, but helping businesses to really determine what that value is, and then how to go about a process to achieve that value. That's a huge problem. It was a problem when we founded the company a decade ago, and it's still a problem today. So the thing that motivates me is as long as that problem exists, or a problem that I've decided to tackle exists, I'm going to get up every day and try to figure out a way to make it better and help solve it.
Your communications have probably evolved. Mm-hmm. Think back to the early message in the early days versus what the message is now. Has it changed?
The core message has never changed. The core message is, how do you, as a brand, as an organization, how do you engage people that know you, like you, love you, want to help you? How do you actually get them to do that? How do you get them to share content and be active on social? So that message of helping to address that problem has never changed, but the implementation has evolved radically. Brands that we talked to in the early days that have seen our platform recently can't even recognize that we're the same company. So certainly the implementation is fundamentally different.
So it sounds like, human beings, that we have a purpose, and that's a direction that never changes, but the tactics along the way do. So we evolve as executors, but the mission remains constant.
Absolutely. I think in business and life, flexibility, adaptability are key. This is absolutely an industry that has no clear roadmap. In order to move forward and stay relevant and provide value to customers, that North Star, so to speak, really has to be something that's ingrained in everybody in the organization. That allows them to make decisions in the absence of a map to help guide the process and make sure they're moving in the right direction.
Brian, who's your mentor?
There's a question that gets asked a lot, who mentors and role models are. Can break that up. I think the person who inspires me is probably my dad. which is a common answer, I know, but I'll use it anyway. He's a physician, but he came over here with literally $8 to his name and built something for himself. So that always kind of inspires me and motivates me when I think about where I am and what I'm doing. But then I have other professional mentors, people that I work with. There's a gentleman I worked with for quite some time, a guy named Bill Clark, who
I know him well. He actually recorded an interview a couple episodes ago.
I saw that. So Bill, and so he's a personal friend and another mentor, and he's been through a lot, and I look to some of his example to try to learn and improve. So.
One of the frustrating things about this interview, doing podcasts, is the podcast with Bill is a good example. We finish the podcast, it's a great recording, the recorder comes off, and then Bill says, I should have told you about this company I built that had a revenue of $150 million a year. A giant company came calling, and I was kind of full of ego. And he tells this amazing story that should have been on the podcast, but only happened after we stopped recording. It's like, darn it, Bill.
It is an amazing story. It's his story to tell, though, but I'm aware of it, and you definitely should get him back for round two. But I'm 100%. That's the type of experience that I think it's when we talk about mentors. To me, a mentor is someone that's active in your life and is able to help guide you, right? Versus a role model, where I know a lot of people throw role models out, like Steve Jobs or something like that. But being able to have a relationship with somebody that has been through a lot and to then try to be receptive and learn from their experience so you don't repeat it, I think is important for any business leader.
So my favorite Steve Jobs story is one where he isn't the master, imparting wisdom. He was the student. The marketing agency, they were trying to help him sell one of his products. And he was adamant that, it's got these 5 amazing features that we have to tell people in the ads about. That's, I'm Steve and that's what I want. So they're frustrated. So one of the guys gets his legal pad, rips off a sheet of paper, makes a ball, says, Steve, catch. And he throws it to Steve, and Steve catches it and tosses it back. Then he gets another 4 balls of paper, so he's got 5 in total. And he goes, Steve, catch. And Steve can't catch any of them.
Right.
And Steve goes, all right, I get it. One idea, and promote it.
No, I think that's key with any sort of communication, right? Have one message, make sure it comes through. And I think that also translates even into your business, right? I have another guy that I worked with a long time ago who always used to tell me, do one thing, do it well. And, that's something that I tried to take to heart, So for us today in SocialToaster, do one thing, do it well.
And I like that. Jim Collins in his Good to Great book, it was like, what's something you could be best in the world at? And oftentimes, but I can do many things is the answer. And it's like, no, pick one and become great at it.
Yep.
Brian, tell me about your first sales job.
I think I might be a bit unique in that I've never actually worked for anybody else. I started my first company out of, while I was a student at Johns Hopkins. I've run my own businesses ever since. So my first sales job was that first company. It was a web development company, started up by myself with a couple friends in the sort of stereotypical
dorm, yeah.
Right, in the dorm room. By the time I graduated, I had 4 full-time people and kind of grew the business from there. So that was my first experience was as a student / founder of a web development company.
What's the best deal you've ever done?
I think some people might confuse that with the largest deal you've ever done, the most notable deal, right? The biggest name recognition. And it's tempting to throw out some great names of really amazing companies we've worked with. But in order for it to be the best deal, I think it's got to be a relationship where everyone really benefits, where both parties are growing and evolving. Let me come back to that.
But I think there's something valuable you said there, because there's many ways to do business, but if you're doing business in a way that you add value to all the participants, and that's the lens you look at deals through, then that's where you kind of build that network of allies across the landscape.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would say today probably we work with the Schubert organization out of New York. They have a number of Broadway shows, and we worked with them for many years. They're a good example. I'm going to say they're the best deal. We have a lot of really great deals. It's hard for me to pick just one, but that's an organization that we're we're involved with. We have good dialogues. We're able to help come up with new tools and solutions for them that expand even on what we're doing. And so that would be, for me, a good example of a company.
Brian, tell me, in your career, tell me about a come to Jesus moment where you had to do a pivot or overcome a major obstacle.
I mean, when you're the founder of a startup in a volatile world like social media, it seems like almost every week there's some sort of evolution or crisis or something comes up. But I'd say as a company, we had a kind of a defining year in 2016 where we were doing with, and we still do quite a lot of work with major ad agencies. But one of the things that we had emphasized fairly heavily was the media side of social, buying media advertising on Facebook and some of the other networks. As we were growing that business, it became clear that while there is a tremendous amount of value to be had in media, and we still do it today, that for our vision, again, focusing on this idea of really helping brands to truly engage authentic, organic customers, supporters, that buying ads as the primary business for us was not the right direction. We had a really defining year where we made a decision to dial that business back, and we provided in support of the core mission, which is really being a platform that is interesting and exciting and helps to actually get real authentic fans to help promote the brand or be part of that brand messaging. And so that was a very big year for us. In terms of why it was a pivot, critical because we had invested so much in moving in this direction around media. And we'd extend a lot of resources. We'd brought on a large number of people to support that initiative, and we just realized that it was not the best direction for us. And so refocusing on the core SaaS, while the right thing to do, had a lot of repercussions associated with it.
Tell me about internal discussions. Was there a proponent within your company saying, no, we got to stay the course? Like, what were those discussions like? Oftentimes people get locked into, we've made this decision, we've invested, we got to stay the course. Mm-hmm. So how do you have the courage to say, no, wait a minute, we need to change? So what were those discussions like?
Every organization has these times where you look at your sunk costs. It's daunting to consider that moving away from that investment, abandoning it, so to speak, when you have so much invested, that's always an intimidating or daunting sort of a decision. So, it's not unusual for organizations to do what you're saying, stay the course and just keep digging the hole that they're digging, right? I think, for us, it became evident that moving in that direction was not going to be sustainable. And when you realize that, then it may be a difficult conversation to have. It's absolutely a necessary one, and it's one that you then can make. And to me, it's all about really looking at it as an opportunity, right? As a high growth company, I think the most important takeaway overall is that the environment is going to change, and the landscape is constantly evolving. And it's not that we tried something and we failed, because that's not at all what I'm saying. It's more that we experimented, we tried some things out, and some of what we were trying was working better than some of the other things. And when you look at it like that, then
changes the lens.
It's and you look at it as an evolution, then you're able to take those decisions and treat them as opportunities as opposed to looking at them as failures.
I was reading Andy Grove's book, and he was talking about when Intel was a dominant chip maker for memory chips, and they were experimenting with microprocessors. And the question is, where do we invest? Do we invest in where we have dominance, or do we invest in this new microprocessor side of things?
Sure.
And so discussions for like 6 months, 8 months, going round and round in circles. And then he had this epiphany one day with Gordon Moore of the famed, double processing power every 18 months. He says, if the previous leadership got fired and the board brought us in as the new leaders, what would we do? And instantly, both of them simultaneously say, microprocessors.
Right.
But when you're in the thick of things, sometimes it's hard to see, and just getting that different perspective really gives you insights quickly as opposed to struggling with the past.
I would absolutely agree with that.
We live in turbulent times. What do you think is the biggest challenge in sales right now today?
The biggest challenge in sales, I think, is one of noise. We are working with a lot of companies, and I think one of the reasons that we are appealing as a platform is because they are dealing with this issue of digital noise. We have noise overall, right? I mean, we're inundated with advertising visually as we move throughout our day. But when we start to focus on digital, right, the volume of emails we receive is ever increasing. Every time we log into, social media, our feed is overwhelmed with all kinds of discussions from friends, things we care about, but also many things we don't care about. One of the things that I think that is interesting about the human brain is we really are the best spam filters. In spite of things that may get through our automatic, mechanical, electronic filters, right? We've gotten very good at glancing at something and saying this is relevant or this is not relevant for me. And so as the volume of digital information we're assaulted with increases, our brains are getting better and better at just deciding whether we want them to or not, that this is or is not something that we care about. And so cutting through the noise is a huge challenge in sales. What I think we are all discovering is that the only way to really cut through that noise is if you are able to hitch your pony, so to speak, to a cart that is known, right?
Right.
Meaning, if you are able to piggyback off of a trusted friend, if we've seen the stats, recommendations from friends are trusted
carry a lot
above,
of weight, yeah.
Right, above all else, right? So that, I think, persists today. That's one of the few ways that we can cut through the noise. Otherwise, we have to create more noise, right? So if we're hoping that brand recognition alone is going to carry us to kind of get through that mental filter to say, this is something I want to look at, then the only other real meaningful way to do that is to just over-assault the person and have your brand everywhere. So not all businesses can afford to have their brand be ubiquitous on kind of every single channel. So the rest of the companies, it's really comes down to being creative, being smart, and trying to get in the door through that trusted relationship.
Brian, you've got salespeople that work for you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with a salesperson that's performing well but goes into a slump? How do you get them to come out of that slump and kind of get back on track?
I think we've certainly had that. I think salespeople go through slumps for a number of reasons, like many of which has nothing to do with the company. A lot of times dealing with relationship breakups, moving, all kinds of things can be distracting. But also sometimes they get into slumps just like sports players, right? They have a couple bad games, the mindset becomes affected. They start to think, they get in their own head.
Don't make a mistake.
Sure. And then they know that they're in a slump, so then they work harder, but the attitude kind of carries through. So, for us, when that happens, it is, I think, about really looking at the mindset of the person and recognizing that beating them up isn't going to motivate them. Throwing more money at them isn't going to motivate them. If anything, that frustrates them that you've maybe given them this opportunity, but they still got the bad mindset. So, I think that's how you treat that symptom. Is you really need to, have conversations, get the individual to open up about what's going on, get them to recognize and understand that they're dealing with a mindset issue. Try to create an environment where they can get sort of the positive feedback, necessary to change that mindset and get them out of that slump.
Before we kind of wind this thing up, Brian, what's something you know now that you wish you knew 10 years ago?
The number one thing I wish I had known, how long the evolution of this whole social media roller coaster would kind of turn out to be. And what I mean by that is, I think back in the sort of late 2006, 7, 8 kind of was social media was really gaining momentum. There was so much hype around it, and everybody knew it was going to be compelling and interesting and amazing. And it has been. It has changed society, right? I mean, look at the political landscape, like things that no one would have thought could have happened as a direct result, I think,
Right.
of social media, right? As a tool, we are not that much further along today in 2018 than we were in 2010. Algorithms change. We're dealing with concerns right now around privacy, but privacy has always been a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that as a technologist and as an optimist, I thought society would be much further along. And to me, I'm looking at that as an opportunity. I mean, I know there's so much more that we could be doing, and we just need to continue to innovate and be creative. And I think everyone will be amazed and surprised at what's around the corner.
So, Brian, you're a dad, right?
I am, yes.
How many children?
I have 2 girls. I have an 8-year-old and one soon-to-be 6-year-old.
As they grow up, if they decided to go into business, what would be 3 pieces of advice you'd give them to give them a leg up on making better decisions, building stronger companies?
I think number 1, really ensuring that you have a clear kind of mission and vision in mind at the onset. I think that many businesses start because people have a skill set and they sort of see an opportunity. Before they know it, they suddenly have a business. They're executing on that skill, but they're doing so without
direction,
right? Without that clear mission, without that clear vision, that mindset, that North Star I mentioned before, that kind of guides you when you don't know where you're going, right? And so the result is that the majority of businesses sort of fumble along. Sometimes they're making money, sometimes they're losing money, but they're never really growing at the scale or rate that they potentially could with a clearer vision. So number 1 would be have that in mind. Number 2 would be treat the business itself as a math problem. I think having an understanding of your sort of underlying business model, how the financials work, I think that is critical, and that's something I learned. I'm going to say the hard way, but my first business I started because, as I just said, I had a skill set. I enjoyed doing it, but it was only through kind of years of evolution that I came to appreciate what was necessary at a profound mathematical level to really ensure that you can be successful. The third element would be to really just make sure you enjoy and you love what you're doing. There's, it's definitely possible in life to go down a path and enjoy what you're doing, love it every day, and still be successful, still make money, still be providing value to society or delivering on something. But, I do think it's easy to get trapped or fall down into a hole where you're maybe doing all the right things, but you wake up one day and you're like, this isn't what's
How did I get here?
Yeah. It's not making me happy. So,
Brian, thanks so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.